Hey folks, welcome to VerifiedInvesting.com. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here. Now, today we are watching this major level on the NASDAQ. This is a key pivotal level that, again, has worked to cause 15% drops off of it and 25% drops. Guess what? The NASDAQ has just tagged this level again today. Are we on the verge of a major correction? Time will tell, but the charts do give us insights. All right, let's get into the charts here and take a look. What you're looking at right here is the starting point of this trend line. This is going back to the COVID collapse in 2020. And again, for all of us that remember this vividly, I traded through it and I've traded through many bull and bear markets, but the market's declining a whopping 30% basically in 1 month, right? February 19th of 2020 was the high. We bottomed out on March 23rd of 2020. So we saw, again, just over a month, a 30% drop. So that's what we would call a major pivot low. All right. So now, again, this is something that investors struggle with when they're learning technicals. How do you know a low is major versus minor? A minor low would be after a major low is put in and it kind of comes up and then it pulls back a little bit and then it goes higher, right? Something where on either side it's not significant. In other words, you're looking for a major low that was a huge sell-off into it and then a huge reversal off of it. And it's the lowest point in recent history on both sides. And that can be looked at as being major. So just keep that in mind as an educational pivot point. All right, so as we look at this, we can go out here, and what we can see is that this low from COVID, we had the massive V-shaped recovery, and then we've been really marching up, up, and away. This right here, my friends, again, this was your bear market pullback on the NASDAQ here, and this was your 2021 bull market high. And so you can see, again, we had this longer term kind of down bounce, down and bounce, and then we bottomed out and we started to make our move up. And then again, the rest is history here as we've just gone up, up, and away. So that's where this trend line comes from. And just to note here, this low works perfectly with the gap down on this day that was recovered, right? So you gapped here in green means it rallied up. We then came in, we tagged it here. We then closed below but never confirmed, came up, and finally we broke below and confirmed as the bear market ensued in 2022. All right, now, if we go to this and we kind of bring it all the way back here, this is where things get interesting, right? So that low from COVID, now we're zoomed out on it. We have this pivot point, we have the breakdown of the bear market, and then the bottom of the bear market begins to recover. And what we see here, folks, is, again, we see this kind of first hit of the trend line, so a retrace to what I call the scene of the crime, and then that 15% drop in the markets. And this coincided with a pullback in August of 2024. All right, in 2024, July to August, we saw a 15% correction. And by the way, it was from right here on the 10th of July to the 5th of August, right? And so really that was a little less than a month, and it was a 15% drop. In fact, almost 16%, as we can see right here. Now, that was the first one, and then the markets began their climb higher. Look at the V-shaped recovery again. Sharp down, sharp up, pullback, and continuation. Then we tagged it on December 16th. Now, December 16th was a little bit more unusual because we did have a pullback, but then we kind of chopped sideways to up. We never took out. We kind of did what's called a double top. See how you have this high, which is equal to this high, and then the Liberation Day sell-off ensued where it was a big, big fall here. So if we look at this from this date right here on December 16th, we didn't bottom out on this pullback until the 7th of April. So again, it was quite a bit longer, but you could argue that the hit here, we could actually go off the double top. So we could actually shrink that down since that was the same high right there. And then this becomes February 19th to April 7th. It's about 6 weeks, right? So 6 weeks and the NASDAQ dropped 26%. And so what we're seeing is the beginning of a theme here where the drops, when they really start, they're quick, and then we get V-shaped recoveries. But again, they're pretty hefty here, 15%, 26% in a matter of 6 weeks or 4 weeks and then 6 weeks, right? And so the question has to be begged here now as we get to the current period in the market and we flip back to the charts is we've just come up here. Now, what I think is amazing, right, is what's amazing is that we got above it briefly, and then we came right back in, and we had this small little pullback, very reminiscent of what we had right here, except it took a little longer, right? And then look at today. We went up on the daily, we pierced that line, and it got rejected again. All right, so this now, again, listen, let's first and foremost say that in technical analysis, nothing's a sure thing. So you could break above this line and break out. That's always a possibility. But as a technician, I'm walking you through how important this trend line is based on TA, technical analysis. All right, and so we really want to follow this level and see what happens off of it. In other words, if we're going to get a bigger correction, it really does make sense that it starts right around this level, considering here that we double topped and had this massive sell-off within 6 weeks. We dropped 26%. Then here we hit it within 4 weeks. We dropped 15%. You guys are getting the gist here, is that this area here stands to be very significant. And again, you can see, I think what's amazing here is that the NASDAQ ran up and pierced this line and got rejected again, even on an intraday basis. Now, listen, it's still intraday. We'll have to see where this candle closes, but I do think that is very, very interesting. And I just want to flip over to the weekly chart. So the weekly chart kind of shows it more succinctly, where we have, here's your COVID low to this low. We broke down during the bear market. We rallied back. There's your August sell-off. Here is your high pivot in December, and then your Liberation Day sell-off from February into early April, and then the V-shaped recovery. So there's listen, it's very clear that if it's not like right here, this was a bear market. So you didn't get a V-shaped recovery, right? But right here, hits, V-shaped recovery after a big drop, hits, double top, V-shaped recovery, drop, and V-shaped recovery. And so the idea here is that we could be due for one of these sharp drops, but then we have to watch, is it a bear market or is it a V-shaped recovery? All right, if it's a V-shaped recovery, then you have to just continue to assume this type of pattern is going to form, versus if it's a bear market, then we have much more of a longer term. Like here was November of 2021, and we did not really bottom out until October of 2022. So this was about a year of downside, general downside. Obviously, we had some bounces along the way. So again, my goal here is, folks, is to give you guys insights into major levels to watch, but also give you insights into the psychology of a trader, of an investor who's done this for literally multiple decades. And what am I watching here? What am I preparing for? Am I saying, oh, let's just be bullish no matter what? Or let's be a little careful here, not to say it can't break above this level, but let's watch this level. We see what historically has happened off of this level. We have to monitor this level very closely and see ultimately what happens. And that's really the essence of this video, folks, is to know that we are at a pivotal level. The probabilities probably do favor some sort of pullback. You can see the price action today pierces that level, pulls back. The price action from a few days ago, we hit that level, we pulled back. Now the question is, does it turn into be one of these bigger sell-offs? That's what I'm watching to see. Or do we break above? Do we do what the probability is not favoring, but still there's a small chance of, which is break up and just keep going and going and going? And I think we'll know within the next week or two. All right, coming to quarter end here, we'll have a new quarter, new opportunity for institutional money to maneuver. Let's see what happens here into the fourth quarter of 2024. You guys have a great one as always. Thanks so much for tuning in, folks. Have a good one. Take care.